Hi and welcome to TEC Bike Parts. As you can see, we've got the new Speed Twin here. You have to be careful, Speed Twin, I get confused with Street Twin and Speed Twin. But the new Speed Twin 1200. Now Triumph have released this and I haven't really hyped it that much, but to be perfectly honest, I've just ridden this a few times and it's a fantastic bike. It's almost like a perfect combination of the Thruxton R and the Street Twin. You have to keep remembering which one's street and which one's speed. Yeah, it's a very nice bike. Considering that the bike's still got fairly basic suspension on it, they've actually done a very good job of setting it up. It just goes to show how well they've got the chassis set up on this bike. As soon as you ride it straight out of the box, you feel right at home on it. You can ride it fast straight away. The brakes give you great confidence. It's nice and short and punchy. It's got nice power. All the riding modes are nice, so it's really set up well. It's got all the typical things of a Euro 4 bike. It's a little bit lumpy when you come on and off the throttle, but we've got ways of getting around that. Yeah, it's a really nice bike. This bike's got a few extras on it. It's got the Vance & Hines silencers on, which personally I think they're probably a bit of a waste of money for what you get. They do sound a bit deeper, but not much louder than the stock silencers. What you really need to do is put a Decal pipe on and just leave the stock silencers on, and you'll find that you get much nicer sound, better throttle response, and obviously it'll cost you a lot less. What I'm not going to do is a standard road test come review on this bike. I'm going to go a bit left of field because there's hundreds and hundreds of people who've done road tests on this bike. Basically, you got the deal, I get the bike out, ride it around with a GoPro on, and then give you a quick talk afterwards. I'm going a little bit more in depth on this bike and also giving you the feedback of owners that have already bought this and come back to me with questions and part requests that they want for the bike. So we'll start at the front. First of all, Triumph have put a nice set of Brembo 4-pot calipers on this bike and big brakes. Really stops well, lots of control under the braking. The front forks, now they say they're cartridge forks, but Triumph are sort of stretching the truth a little bit. They're actually one cartridge forks. There's only a cartridge in one fork leg. Only reason for that, cost cutting. They do work very well, but a little bit underdamped, and that's probably the fact of only having one cartridge in. Now, saying that, underdamped, they're actually absolutely perfect for road use. You won't have any problem if you're not pushing on too hard. But if you want to ride really hard with sport bike riders, or on smooth roads like in Spain or Portugal, or on a racetrack on a track day, you will want to up the damping on the forks or the spring rate. The other thing about the forks is they're non-adjustable out of the factory. Now we are producing a fork top adjuster for the forks so you can actually trim the ride height on them in the preload, and we are also doing a set of progressive fork springs for them, just so you can fine tune the forks up a little bit, get a little bit more comfort and a little bit more control under braking. So that's the difference in the springs. These are the stock springs that they have in, which are a linear spring. That means they're wound the same all the way up. And these are the progressive springs that we put in. These aren't actually the springs we use are different length of this, but just to give you an idea, that the tightly wound at one end to give you a softer spring, and they progressively get wider as they go up to give you a wider range of springing. And we also have developed these fork tops. Now these are different for this because it has a cartridge in one leg and it needs a threaded insert inside to screw the cartridge into. So they'll be available in about a month's time. While we're looking at the front end, what we've also designed and made is a steering damper kit for the front end. Not everybody feel they need it, but it's nice to have there for just that extra bit of security if you're really pushing on hard. It's got 5-position hydraulic adjustment on, and that's a fairly straightforward bolt-on fit. Right, staying at the front end, we make these CNC adjustable levers, which are actually handy because you can adjust them while you're riding just with your thumb. Whereas this type you've got to twiddle about with this at the end, which is not easy with gloves on. So So they're all CNC machined from solid, and they actually match the bike, we think, much nicer than the original levers. This bike has one of our sump guards fitted to it, which is really handy because the bike doesn't have much in the way of a front mud guard, and you get an awful lot of crud and muck sprayed up onto the other side of the engine, and this helps stop a lot of it getting onto the bottom of the motor. Now, we make these in black and in anodized silver. Now, unlike a lot of sump guards on the market, ours have a reinforced raised edge either side and a centre rib. Now, this increases the strength quite considerably on the sump guard. You actually jack the bike up on it without it deforming. It's that strong. So that'll give a lot of protection to the underside of your motor, as well as looking quite nice. It hides the unsightly exhaust underneath. Now, what I found when riding the Thruxton was I never found the foot pegs were in the sort of right position for me. Strangely enough, on this bike I prefer the riding position much nicer, but again, one size doesn't fit everybody, and everybody's slightly different. So we do produce a adjustable peg which you can move in 25mm in any direction. Now, we make these with a silver end or a black end, depending on, probably silver end you'd want on this bike to match the fitting, but some people like black. And we also do matching rear pegs as well to go with them. So that gives you just that bit of personalisation on the adjustment on the bike. While we're in this area, we do a little alloy finned oil cap, which it's just a cosmetic thing. It changes away from the standard plastic one. We do those either in black and silver, which is a good match for the motor, or we do them in a polished silver as well. Going on to the rear end of the bike, the suspension units. I'm amazed how good these suspension units, because they're actually a very basic unit. They're a mild steel, chrome mild steel unit, which is just a basic oil damper in it. The springs, probably what flatter, they've actually got a very good rated spring on for solo use for an average weighted rider. If you start loading this up with a passenger, or you're a heavier rider or a lighter rider, you might not find them so comfortable, but an average sort of weight rider, you'll find that they're really quite compliant over bumps. What you will find though, if you push on really hard or on smooth roads, you will find that they're very underdamped, and they will start to fade once they start to get hot. That's just an oil-filled damper will do that. To stop fade, you need a gas damper. Now, we do produce an RSU damper for this bike. Now, they come with adjustable preload, adjustable length, and adjustable rebound damping. So you can really dial them in to suit your need on the bike. Now, again, we've got spring choice on these, so you can choose the spring that suits your riding best, and whether you want comfort or performance. And generally they're going to give you a much more controlled ride because the damping is superior, and you won't suffer from fade as much as you will with an oil damper. They're also considerably lighter, being all alloy, than this all steel construction. Well, maybe the little top bit here is aluminium, but the rest of it's all steel, and they actually are quite heavy, those units. So, talking about weight saving, I'm going to go about something else here. This bike is about 10 kilos lighter than the previous Thruxton model it's based on. Now, you wouldn't think that would make that much difference, but when you ride the bike, it feels massively lighter than the Thruxton, which I was very surprised at riding them back to back, because the Thruxton is quite a light bike. Now, you think 10 kilos, that's great, but we can actually give you another 10 kilos off this bike quite easily by changing the exhaust system. The exhaust system is a 9 kilo weight saving with our Radar 2-1 system, which I've got on this bike, and we can go and have a look at it now if you want. So this is the Radar system. It's a 2-1 system. It's big bore, no cat, and it's got a removable baffle system in it. I think it's 9 kilos lighter than the Triumph system with the cat. Now that's as much lighter as this bike already is from being a Thruxton almost anyway. And you can really feel the weight difference by going down to that. So that combined with a pair of alloy shocks is going to get you 10 kilos off the total weight of the bike. Whilst we're talking about weight and performance, what most people will want to do is fit one of our Decal pipes, which goes underneath the motor here. It's quite well hidden, so it's pointless trying to show you it, but basically this replaces the catalytic converter that's in there, and it also mounts all the standard heat shields, so really you can't really see that it's in there, which is a nice bit of stealthy performance increase. Now you will get a much nicer sound with this on. You get better throttle response, and you probably find that you don't need to spend the money on the Vance & Hines silencers, or any other silencers for that matter. The stock silencers will normally give you enough performance and sound with just this fitted. It is a bit of a bind to fit, it takes an hour or two to fit it, but it's well worth the effort. Whilst we're talking about performance, we've got quite an experience with these 1200 motors of getting a lot more power out of them. One of the biggest ways you can get extra power out is with our fast road camshaft kit. Now just dropping this in alone will give you approximately 10 brake horsepower more. Obviously you get more power if you change things like exhaust, air filter, things like that, but you can just drop this in and fit it. It's an instant 10 brake horsepower, and it doesn't take the bottom end power away. You keep all your bottom end torque, and you just get a lot more at the top end as well. Not that these bikes feel particularly slow, but if you're the sort of rider who's come off a sports bike and you're used to 150 horsepower, you may just feel it's lacking a little bit at the top end, especially if you're going out riding with guys on other more powerful bikes. You might just want that little bit extra top end. It isn't expensive. 360 quid for 10 brake horsepower is not a lot of money. And if you combine that with our Decal or one of our high performance exhaust systems, you'll get even more and save even more weight. Right, I get asked a lot about these bikes. If I modify them, do I need to remap them? The simple answer is no, because there isn't a remap for them. Triumph have produced a new map for these bikes now, which is called an anti-stall map, which is actually quite rich right throughout the range. But if you do want to remap it, you can't. It's as simple as that, because Triumph doesn't release a map and the ECU is locked. So if you feel you want to remap it, which I don't think you need to, but if you do feel so, you've got two options basically. You can either use something like a power commander, which is a full piggyback computer. Basically this interrupts all the signals from the sensors on the bike and reinterprets them into the ECU. So basically you can adjust your fuel air flow ratio, and you can adjust your ignition timing. You can also extend your revs on it. Now this is a good bit of kit, and in the right hands, if they're tuned correctly, they're great. What we found though on this particular bike, even with a camshaft and an upgraded exhaust system on, yes, you can get a slightly smoother run with a power commander, but you only gain about 2 brake horsepower at the top end, which for the cost of putting a power commander on and all the labour of setting it up, basically doesn't justify the cost. Now, a lot of people still feel they want a bit of an insurance policy, and also they don't like the lumpy revs lower down. So there is a much cheaper and easier alternative. It's called a booster plug. Now these have been widely sort of talked about and reviewed all over the world. They're a really simple device. It goes into the air temperature sensor, interrupts it. Basically you plug your wiring into it and then plug that back into the sensor. And it has its own air temperature sensor probe on it. Now this adjusts the signal to the ECU and basically fools the ECU into thinking the air is denser than what it is. So therefore it gives it about 6 to 7% more fuel through, but only during the acceleration. Now that takes a lot of your lumpiness away from the throttle by giving you a little bit of a richer mixture than Euro 4 normally allows. Now that is a very simple device. You can plug it in a couple of minutes, and if you want to take it out and to go for service or testing or whatever, you can simply unplug it and plug the standard wiring back in. Also, because there's no setting up costs, they're considerably cheaper to fit your bike than a power commander. If you're going for the ultimate tune and you want every last ounce of power out of it, go for the power commander. But for 2 brake horsepower, for what will cost you probably about £600 to have fitted and tuned, it's not really worth, we found, the extra money to spend on the power commander. We'll sell you either, the choice is yours at the end of the day, but normally you don't need anything at all. What I wanted to do on comparing these bikes and doing a review on this bike is to run it back to back with the Thruxton R, because in theory this bike is based on the Thruxton, so it should ride very similar to it, and surprisingly it doesn't, which I thought a bit odd. And it just goes to show you how important ergonomics are on a bike. This bike has, personally I feel, for the road much better ergonomics than the Thruxton. I mean, for the start, you've got a much more comfortable upright riding position. Yes, you'll get a lot of wind buffing at high speed, but much higher than what the road legal speed limit is. So let's talk about real world riding. Real world riding, this bike is better than the Thruxton R. Your suspension is more compliant with the roads that we've got at the moment, full of potholes and ruts. And the Thruxton R, yes, it's great on a track or on a very smooth road, but you will find it punishes you, especially the clip-ons. You feel it's very front heavy, and you're hitting things hard on the front end, and you feel that shock right up through your arms. What I thought I would do when I rode the bike is I thought I'd ride right up to the tank, but actually I sit in the position where you would on the Thruxton. You sit a couple of inches back, so the actual sitting position is no different, and the feet position are no different. It's all down to the handlebars. Now the handlebars, obviously they've got a riser and they're pulled back slightly. They're nigh damn on perfect for me. There's nothing I would change about those. Or the foot peg arrangement with those bars. I'm seriously considering putting that setup on my Thruxton R and doing away with the fairing, and seeing how that compares like for like with it. Like I say, in the real world the suspension's good. You can tell they've set it up for normal everyday riding and everyday speeds. See, where you will fall down, if you do ride fast for long distances, you will feel you probably need some sort of wind protection on the front. So, in summary, is this the perfect Triumph? Pretty much so for road riding. It's got nearly all the power you're ever going to need, unless you've come off something over 150 brake horsepower. You may feel it's a little slow. But generally, you need to slow down on the roads these days. There's a lot of speed cameras and police about, so yeah, it probably is going to slow you down with a lack of wind protection. Bad points? Very few bad points, really. Like I said, they've cut a few corners on the suspension. The lack of a luggage rack is a bit of a no-no in an accessory range, but we're going to address that. They haven't put any lugs on the stand for a centre stand, so that's never going to be an option, which, for the sake of welding a couple of lugs on, might have been handy. I know most people on a semi-sports bike like this won't put a centre stand on, but it would be nice to have the option. What they have done, given them their due, is they've put paddock stand bobbin mounts on the swinging arm, which they didn't do on the 900s, which is a bit of a no-no really, but that's a simple way around it, where if you want to work on the bike and clean it, you can get it up on a paddock stand, which it's a bit easier than having no centre stand. Generally the fit and finish on the bike's really nice quality accessories. Paint finishes are lovely. I like little touches like the Monza gas cap and the nice brace on the forks, taper bars, all quality, nice bar ends. Just a couple of little things let them down. Some of the fasteners aren't top notch. They don't match other fasteners on the bike. But generally, yes, very impressed with it.